Before I received my mission and began the public providence of God's plan, it was a time of monastic life. Whether it snowed or rained, the cliffs of Mount Taedun itself were my home. The Holy Sun was always with me, appearing in the form of Jesus to teach me. Just as the cliffs of Taedun Mountain were worn smooth by countless years of rain and wind, my body, mind, thoughts, soul, and spirit were all shaped and polished by the words of the age and prayer. The training of the heart, the cultivation of behavior, and the search for truth were as difficult as paving the rocky path of the cliffs. Even though I asked how long this life would last and how many long years it would be, the Holy Sun never answered. It was not over simply because I wanted to stop. Though I was pulled by the will of heaven, I had to walk the path of my own understanding, and my desire to act had to be strong. What I did not want to do could not last long, and if anyone tried to pull me, the end would soon be in sight. Whether hot or cold, rain or snow, I traveled to Mount Taedun year-round to pray, and during times of hardship, I hid my body there and rested comfortably in the embrace of heaven. At that time, no one ordered me to go up to the mountain to pray. I was moved by the inspiration of heaven and walked that path on my own. Since I was determined to know and understand more, I repeatedly read the Bible and practiced on my own. So even when it was difficult, I never gave up and could continue preparing my mission. During the day, I read the Bible by sunlight, and when the sun set, I covered myself with the sky's quilt of stars and prayed. I also sang praises. Sometimes I read the Bible by moonlight, and I would ask questions about what I read in the night prayers and receive understanding. Each time I understood the deep meaning of heaven, every time I discovered the profound truth, I felt as though I had found a precious gem embedded in a rock cliff, and I was filled with joy and happiness. Hope for the future became a rich feast, and although my body weakened, my spirit was as fresh as the pine trees of the cliff in summer and as sharp as the stars in the autumn sky. When I was hungry, I should have gone home, but I was determined to follow the Lord, and with that resolve, I wanted to embody the body of God and the Holy Sun and act upon it. I had suffered from poverty and lack of education, so I had often prayed overnight, deeply troubled about my future. And one day while praying, I fell asleep, and in my dream, the Holy Sun appeared as Jesus, dressed in white. Do you want to ask about your future? I will find you a job. Come with me. If you ask someone who believes in me, they will give you a job without an interview, Jesus said, and I followed him. The first place we visited was a tangerine farm in Jeju Island. At that time, tangerines were rare, and I thought I would be able to eat plenty of this precious fruit if I worked there, so I was curious. However, when I saw the women picking tangerines, her expression showed she was tired of it. So I thought, this is not something I can do for life, and I turned back. The second place was a dried fish shop in Busan. There I saw my favorite anchovies and dried squid. But while eating them might be good, I couldn't imagine spending my life selling fish and being happy. The third place was a private academy in Daejeon. When Jesus asked the teacher to find me a job, he was surprised and happy to see Jesus and readily offered to teach me. But I thought that living a life of difficult studies, especially when I wasn't good at studying, would eventually tire me out. And seeing how others struggled with their studies, I didn't think I would be happy, so I told Jesus I didn't want to do it. The fourth place we visited was a company in downtown Seoul. The department head was smoking and complaining about his troubles, and one employee was sighing. I realized that if I worked in that company for life, I wouldn't be satisfied. I traveled all around the country, but there was no job that seemed like something I could do happily for life. So, whether I was hungry or not, I made up my mind to follow the Lord and said, "I'm sorry, but Lord, I don't want to do any of these things. I just want to follow you. Please allow me to do that. If you give me an errand, I will do it." The fifth place we went was like a wilderness of Israel, with a huge blank sheet of paper laying on the ground. Jesus was writing and painting with a brush. There was ink and inkstone beside him, and I offered to grind the ink for him. But Jesus said, "The ink is already ground. Follow me and draw." And he took out a large brush from his pouch and threw it to me. "Take this brush. It is the last brush on earth, only mine and yours. There are no more brushes. Draw as I do," he said. So I took the brush, and following Jesus, I drew a large circle and a small circle, then connected them with a line. Jesus said, "This is the principle of contraction and expansion." As I was drawing, Jesus had already left and was climbing up the distant mountain ridge. "Lord, why are you leaving me without saying a word, leaving me alone?" I ran after him. Jesus looked back with sympathy and said, "I entrust this to you, so do your best. It will be difficult and painful at times, and many things will pierce your heart like a sword, but I am with you." Then, as recorded in Acts 1, he ascended into the sky from Mount of Olives. When Jesus ascended to heaven after being crucified and resurrected 2,000 years ago, he ascended just like that, in spirit. I realized this. But for 3 years, I couldn't understand this dream, and I wondered, was Jesus telling me to become a painter? Later, I went to Gwangju, Gyeonggi Province, and spent 70 days fasting, reading the Bible, and praying. In the Gospel of Luke, there is a story about a brush, and Luke said, "I took the brush to report to Theophilus." Realizing this, I understood that the brush was about writing the Bible. It referred to writing the words of this age. At that time, I wrote 150 pages a day from the words I received. During this period, I understood that Jesus' brush symbolized the New Testament words, and the brush he gave me was the brush of the words of this era. Since then, I have never put down my brush, using my tongue and pen to write and practice. Over the past 40 years, according to the Times, I have written over 5,000 brushes of words of life. I wrote over 50,000 proverbs and over 3,500 poems. While I was confined, I managed the faith of those who followed the Times, writing 70,000 letters and tens of thousands of words. Also, with my mouth, I preached and taught tens of thousands of times. I became the body of Jesus and the Holy Son, the body of God and the Holy Spirit. Because he gave me the brush, I acted accordingly.